Go.
Are you doing it or
No,
me?
you're doing it. You're supposed to give us a nice introduction.
Okay. We are the Miners. Keaton and Lydia Minor. That was awful. It's okay. Bloopers. We are the Miners, and we are going to talk about our September 2022 Italy trip for fun, for memories, so we can look back on it and just have something to reminisce on so we don't forget about it.
Yep.
And Honey Minor. This is Honey.
Which will probably be popping in and out over and over again.
Yes.
Well, do you want to start with where we started on the trip or how we got there?
I think we should talk about how we decided to go on the trip in the first place.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd been talking about it for a long time and how, like, that was kind of our goal to go sometime in 2022. I'd say that was, like, December 2021, probably, that we started talking about, like, wanting to go to Europe. But we didn't really have any set plans. And then it kind of ended up being, like, a sporadic booking.
Yeah, in March of 2021.
So I guess we'll get to this eventually, but funnily enough, we ended up going with some friends. We had already individually planned on going to Italy, or talked about going to Italy at some point, and over the course of the next, like, 4 or 5 months or so, we ended up having a conversation with some of our really good friends, Matt and Hannah, who let us know they were also trying to go to Italy, and we talked about making it a joint trip and thought it would be really, really fun. So I think we talked about it probably starting in March, like you said.
Yeah.
And just, like, seeing if it was feasible, finding some dates that would work, and just kind of decided to, like, pull the trigger.
Yeah, having friends go with us sort of made us commit to actually doing the trip instead of talking about the trip, which I think we ended up doing a lot of times.
Yeah, I think it would have taken us a lot more thought if it was just us to go. I think we still would have done it, but I would have overthought it a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up finally just saying, like, okay, we found some flights we like. Let's just have you guys over for dinner and we'll do it just so we can, like, get it planned. So I remember we went to the Mule for dinner and they came over and it was like 9 o'clock on, like, a Monday or Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And we booked our flights together, which was, like, really, really fun. And at that point we only had, like, 3 months till our trip actually happened. So I say sporadic because I feel like a lot of people typically book those big trips a year in advance or something. So, but I think it kind of made it fun doing it that way because, I don't know, it was something that we could look forward to that wasn't too far away, and it gave us things to do. Like, we kept ourselves busy planning for it, you know what I mean?
We were
like,
planning all the way up until the trip, basically.
Yeah, so it's kind of fun to have, like, weekly, I don't say
and we got good flight deals. I think we should also mention that.
Yes.
Like, we used the credit card points, the Chase points, and we're able to get, because we were able to get one of the flights free, we were able to include Vienna on the trip, which we'll talk about in the next video.
Mm-hmm.
Since this one's just about Italy, but yeah, having the points makes it so much easier to hop around from city to city.
Also, do you want to scoot back a little bit so your head's in it or no?
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you want to, but I just noticed that.
Dog.
There you go. But yeah, it worked out really well. So, what do you want to go through next?
Just going there, like first flying. So left on, I guess, when did we leave? September.
We left on September 10th, I think. 10th. I don't know
what
day that was.
10th to the 21st.
Yes, 10th through the 21st.
So 11-day trip.
Italy and Vienna. Italy was probably 6 of those days, 6 or 7. And we decided, just from past experience, that we really wanted to go to one place, and we both had been to Florence before, not together, but we decided we really wanted to go to Florence specifically because that was our favorite place that we had been, at least for me, ever. You'd been a lot of places, but your favorite place in Italy for sure, I think.
My favorite city in Italy was definitely Florence, so I wanted to go back, and I wanted to go back together. And I like staying in one place longer. That way you can get more of the culture. A lot of people will just hop from city to city and spend a day in each city. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I definitely prefer to sort of sit and eat and walk around and just enjoy being there. And you know, sometimes you get lucky and you run into locals and you get to talk to locals, which doesn't happen when you're on a schedule, going really fast to see all the main sites.
Yeah, I think that was kind of our goal. That had been something we had done even for our honeymoon. We went to one place, and there's always going to be more places to see, but I think that would be true even if you hopped around to a lot of different places. So we really enjoyed getting to experience it. So the way we kind of did that too was, so on the trip we went with our friends Matt and Hannah, and we decided to do Florence together, but then kind of split off and do our own thing. But so we met them in Florence. We actually flew into Rome. Because we got good flight deals. Did you already say that?
No.
So we actually flew into Rome because we got good flight deals, and then took a train to Florence. We got off the plane in Rome and then hopped on a train. We just bought a ticket there.
Yeah, it's easy. You get off, and then they have trains going every like hour essentially, and then you can buy a ticket and hop on the train, and you're there in an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, it was a really quick train ride, and it was really pretty too. That was kind of our first like view of Italy we got, and we got to kind of go through the countryside and see just more of Italy than we would have seen if we flew straight into one place. So that was actually really cool, and I really enjoyed that. We got there kind of midday, and our friends had already gotten there and checked into the Airbnb, so we met them there, and that actually ended up, I think, being our favorite Airbnb of the entire trip.
Yes.
Right?
It was amazing.
It was like a rooftop condo, I guess. Like on the 5th story, we had to carry all of our bags up.
Sixth story. We had to carry. So when we got to Florence, you get into the big train station. I think the Santa Maria Novella station, and we walked probably 1.5 miles to maybe a mile to our Airbnb with carrying our luggage, and then you get there and it's like, oh, you got to go up 6 flights of stairs with your luggage, and these are steep flights of stairs. It's not like American stairs. These are European stairs. They're fit there.
They're a different level. Yeah, they were testing the Americans. This is not for them, but it was great. I mean, really, really nice place. So being the first view we got, really, I mean, getting to go up to our rooftop and just like realize like, wow, we made it. And I remember we were just like, I cannot believe we did this, you guys. Like all 4 of us together. Yeah. Like we had just seen them maybe like, I don't know.
Yeah. So
15 hours before, we took different flights.
Yeah, we took different flights, but we flew out of the same airport. And, you know, how long was the flight?
I think it was
8 hours?
9 or 10 hours.
And so it's overnight, and essentially with the change in time, it's like 16 hours of travel. But we got there like in the morning in Rome, and then to Florence. And then we got up to our Airbnb, and we said it was super nice, but it had this, like, forgot to mention that it had like an overlook on the rooftop that you could perfectly see the Palazzo Vecchio, which is like the big sort of medieval looking tower. I think it's one of the oldest buildings in Florence, or one of the original palaces established in Florence. I don't know if that one was pre-Medici or also Medici. I mean, the Medicis basically did all of the Florence stuff that you see. But we got there we were there at like noon, and then that's when we took off the rest of the day, right?
That's when we had just dropped our stuff off. I think we all, I don't know, maybe took a shower, just cleaned up a tiny bit, but then we wanted to hit a couple things that day since we were getting in like early in the day. And so we powered through our jet lag and actually kind of had a full afternoon. The first thing we did, I think we actually stopped and got lunch first.
Actually, wait, before we go to lunch, I'll say the jet lag thing, it's always better to just like power through and go so that way you get on the correct schedule. And we might have cheated a little bit with some help sleeping, and
with your dad's.
Yeah.
His dad gave us some sleeping medicine. It was just like melatonin on like a little.
It's trazodone. And then
so that helps a little bit.
We took like all these different supplements that I don't know if they actually made a difference or not, but it's supposed to like set up your circadian rhythm, but I don't know if that actually helped or not. But it was like energy. We were fun. Like just being there was exciting enough to keep us awake. And yeah, you can keep going with where we were going first.
Yeah, so the first thing we did, because we were starving by the time we got there, we did lunch. And so I actually had a coworker that had been to Italy before, to Florence specifically, and gave us a bunch of suggestions, which I thought was really cool because we weren't just trying random things. We were trying things that friends had said they really enjoyed. But there's this, I call it like a panini shop, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll have to figure out the name and like put it in the comments if we post this, I assume, or something like that. It was like All Antico something.
Oh, yeah.
But they're not just in Florence. There's a couple in Florence. I think there's several throughout Italy.
Started in Florence, right?
I think so. But it was, I feel like this is so dramatic, but like the best panini I've ever had in my life. Like, so good. And it was huge. So we were starving. That was the first thing we ate, and we were all like not sad about it. So
Yeah.
And it's just one of those like street corners. So we were eating outside, just sitting on the curb, eating our first Italian meal, which was awesome. But it also happened to be right outside of the first place we went, which was the Academia.
Yep.
So Academia, if you don't know, Statue of David, super famous, you know,
Yeah.
like art.
The most famous piece of art in the whole world is
Mm-hmm.
maybe besides the Pieta,
Mm-hmm.
which is also by Michelangelo, or the Mona Lisa. I guess the Mona Lisa is maybe more famous than the Statue of David, but everyone knows what the Statue of David looks like. But you get to see it in person, and it's just like another level of amazing. Like it's like I think it's like 9 feet tall or something ridiculous. It's huge. The detail is incredible, and
It's
just
really crazy.
yeah, just the idea that someone did this with their hands hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but it's still around is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. It was really, really cool. I'd say we spent a couple hours there probably.
Yeah,
Probably
because you can
50% of the time or more was spent staring at the Statue of David.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy. And you could walk all the way around it. I thought that was cool. The way they had it set up was, it was like a 360 thing. So you could walk behind it, and like, it's not like any part was like done any worse than the others. Like it was just incredible. Like he put so much time and effort into that, I'm sure. I don't know, like,
yeah.
I mean,
even specific hand muscles are put into it, and the way I don't remember exactly how his hand is positioned, but I think one of the however it was positioned, there's only like a certain muscle that you can see sort of flexed in the statue, and I guess that is literally how exactly, if you were positioning your hand, that's the only way you could possibly see that small muscle.
Yeah, so pretty cool to see that. And that was like the start, like our very first day. So we knocked it out pretty quickly with something.
Yeah, and then the Academia also, I mean, that's the main thing. That's like 95% of the reason you go. And then it has lots of other amazing marble statues, and it has those, was it the Medici music collection that we kind of spent some time in the back? Like, you can see some of the Medici's, specifically one of the Medici family was obsessed with collecting instruments. So we had all these different historical instruments, which is kind of cool.
Which I am a musical person, so it was really awesome to get to see.
Yeah, and if you don't know who the Medicis were, you should definitely look them up, because they're very interesting, and we don't have time to talk about everything they did, but they're like the original starters of the banking industry, and because of that, they were extremely wealthy and powerful in Florence, and they financed all the nice buildings and art you see. Essentially, like Michelangelo was just paid to live and stay near the Medicis and do art. So he just got paid to make the place beautiful. It was the dream life.
Yeah, so that was a really cool start to our trip, and that wasn't even the only thing we did that day. I don't think. I'm trying to remember.
No, definitely not. After that, we went to go get some drinks.
Yeah, I think we did. So they're really into is it aperitivos, where they do like a pre-dinner drink, and dinner to them is late, so like getting an aperitivo at like 5 or like 6 or even probably later than that is appropriate. So, and we were also jet-lagged and hungry and tired all at the same time, so I think we actually just found a place right around the corner from the Duomo, which also really cool to walk by that when you first get there. That was like a cool view. But yeah, we got some drinks, our first drinks in Italy, and we ended up just doing dinner there too, which I know we wanted to point out that typically a lot of the restaurants that are open earlier than like 7 or 7:30 are like catering to tourists, because they don't normally eat early at all. So usually especially if you're in like a touristy area with like the Duomo or anything, like if you see restaurants like that are open really early and serving food, they're probably serving you like food catered to tourists. So it probably, a lot of people say you're not getting like the authentic Italian food if you do that. But again, that night we were starving, we were tired, we just needed to get some food. So, and it was still great. I mean, I wouldn't have known.
Yeah, the food was still good.
Yeah, but we actually heard that before we went on the trip, so we tried really hard to
we avoided it the rest of the trip
mostly if we could. But again, it was just a nice way to kind of relax after our first afternoon there. And then we really debated doing this last thing. I remember we were like, should we do it? We're really tired, but we knew we weren't gonna have another time to do it. And I'm gonna butcher the saying of it, the steps that we went to. It's like the Piazzale Michelangelo.
It basically means the Plaza of Michelangelo's Plaza.
Or the steps. I know a lot of people call it the steps. And that's like a really popular like sunset view spot where you get a really, really, really good view of the city.
You overlook the city, you have the sunset going with you at the same time. Super worth it. It was actually maybe one of the top experiences on our trip, because we're walking up there. We went and bought like a bottle of wine to take up there, and then we walked up there, which was actually kind of a hard hike after not sleeping for basically 24 hours.
And it was a couple miles.
It was raining. It was not raining hard. It was like sprinkling. I got to the top and it started raining a little bit harder, but it let up pretty quickly. And it had like this awesome view where you're overlooking the city. You see the Duomo. You see the red top buildings everywhere, and then it's sprinkling. And then because of the sprinkling, it's also sunny at the same time. So you have this perfect rainbow with the sunset. So it's like the most picturesque thing we've ever had. Probably in my life. It was.
I was like, we're not gonna beat this view the whole trip, which we had great views.
I don't think we never beat that view.
We almost didn't even go, and I remember we got there and we were like, this is the best thing we could have done. And it was busy, but like everyone was there just to relax and watch the sunset, so it didn't feel hectic or crowded. It just, everyone was coming to see this beautiful thing, and it was really cool. That everyone, I don't know, it was weird. We were experiencing it with our group, but like everyone was experiencing that together. A lot of us probably for the first time. So it was awesome. If we could have gone back to do that another night, I would have loved to, but we didn't get to. But next time, so definitely suggest that.
Yes.
Even though your feet are gonna hurt from walking all day, but it was totally worth it. So that was day one, really. I mean, I think we came back and went to bed because we were exhausted.
Yep.
So.
And we got up early the second day. We got up early because we wanted to we were going to the Boboli Gardens, and we wanted to get there before all the people got there, and it opens at 9, I think. But before that, we stopped and we got some coffee, which was kind of unique.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, they do. I don't know the words for it, but a lot of these coffee shops, I call them coffee shops, they're really meant for like the quick grab and go. Like we usually are used to sitting down at a coffee shop, and they're pretty laid back in most of their culture, but like a lot of them for the morning culture, like I think a lot of them just go to a coffee shop to literally get a shot of espresso, chug it, and leave. And so we got there and we all got our little like cappuccinos or coffees, but in order to actually sit at a table, which we saw nobody doing, by the way, you had to pay extra. Like it was like you were paying for the service, but they really just expect you to stand there at the bar, like right where you order, and drink your coffee and eat your, pastry really quickly and then leave. So we didn't feel rushed though. I mean, it was super laid back, but it was actually kind of cool because I remember there was like a local woman on her way to work that came in with her dog and was talking to the barista, and like you could tell this was just like an everyday stop for her. So we did that, and then we went to the Boboli Gardens, which I feel like I'm gonna say this about everything, but it was probably one of my favorite things we did on the trip. I didn't go last time I went to Italy. Last time I was in Florence, I did not do that, and I don't know why, because we spent probably like 3 hours walking through, which you don't have to. You don't have to spend that long, but it's so pretty and it's so relaxing that we just really wanted to be there. Like huge and crazy to me. Who owned that? Was that the Medici too? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that was the Medici's. Basically everything is Medici. It's like the safest answer.
Yeah, but it's just crazy that like that was built for somebody, and it was just these massive grounds and tunnels of
gardens,
vines and huge.
Yeah, I'll have to put some videos in this And it's also like also overlooking the city too, so it's also got incredible views of central Florence. But yeah, it's something that I would definitely highly recommend doing.
Yeah.
Especially going early. Going early, there was like no one walking around, which was awesome.
Yeah, that's something else we learned. I guess it makes sense when they don't eat dinner until like 8 o'clock and they stay up late.
Yeah.
But it's not common for them to be up super early either. So if you want to avoid crowds, going early is definitely gonna help you do that.
Yeah.
So,
but
like,
also nothing is really open.
Yeah, but a lot of the tourist sites like the Bepoli Gardens, a lot of the museums will be open. So that's kind of what we front loaded our days with. But yeah, anything else you wanted to say about the Bepoli Gardens?
Nope, just that it was really good. Highly recommend those.
Yeah. So by the time we finished that, this was kind of the start of us trying to get like authentic food, I guess. Like we wanted to find places that were local. I mean, we weren't going out of our way to like look things up in advance, but we just were kind of trying to be sporadic. We get a feel for like what seemed like a good place to go, and you can kind of tell. You can tell what's going to be the tourist traps and what's going to be real. I think I feel like I could. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know which side of the river we were on, but we ended up walking for probably 30 or 40 minutes because a lot of the restaurants didn't open till like noon or 12:30, and we ended up stopping at probably like one of the best stops of our best restaurants of the trip. Honestly,
I think the third best restaurant of our whole trip, or second best.
I do remember the name. Ironically, it was kind of close to the Bepoli Garden, so rightfully it was named Trattoria Bepoli. Trattoria Bepoli. How do you ever say it? But super incredible. I don't even know how to explain it. It just it was small, and we were the first ones there like right when they opened, but by the time we left, like the entire restaurant was full of locals. Like they were all speaking Italian, so I was like, okay, I know we got a good place. But it was just really awesome.
Yeah, the food was amazing. I think if you want to find authentic food and you haven't planned in advance, then being on the I guess I don't know which side of the river, but it's the side that is not the main side of the river. So it's the side of the river that is not where the Duomo and central Florence, like all the main sites are. So if you go to that other side, that's where all the authentic Italian restaurants are.
Yeah. I don't remember where that one was. It must have been on the other side, but it was great. Trattoria Bepoli. So highly suggest that. I will be suggesting that to friends and family in the future that go there, because it felt very unique and very traditional, and it was just really fun. So that's kind of our lunch stop. And then I think that same day is also the day we did the Duomo. Is that the next thing?
We walked back across the river, back to the Duomo, which is the huge chapel.
The green and white building, massive. I mean, it's what you think of when you think of Florence.
And I was just fascinated with the history of it, because it took more than a full lifetime to build. I think it took almost 150 years to build the Duomo, and it ended with the dome on top, which is the heaviest dome in the entire world. And these people somehow built this back in the 1300s or 1400s, so before any kind of modern technology that we have. And yet it still stands and still is like one of the most beautiful destinations in the world. And yeah, it's
free to get in.
Yeah, free to get in. Then the outside is more amazing than the inside, but the inside is definitely
except for the dome part. The dome is good.
Definitely worth going inside.
Yeah.
You look up to the dome where all the frescoes are painted, and that was pretty incredible.
And I know you can also, we thought about doing this, but we ended up not. You can climb to the top of the Duomo. For whatever reason, I remember, I think it's like 650 steps or something. You have to pay. You do have to pay to do that.
Because we trained for it.
But we decided not to do it because, again, we got such a good view at the steps the night before. That was something we kind of put on like the back burner. Like if we have time and we want to do it, we can. We ended up not really having the time, or deciding not to, just because it didn't really end up fitting into the day like we wanted it to. But I think I've heard great things about it. I think there's a lot of ways to get good views, so I don't think that's your only option.
I would do it next time.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was really good. I think that was also our night, now that I think about it. I think we kind of took a little break.
We didn't take a break. We
breaks?
took a break. But we went to the View on Art.
Oh, yeah.
Right after that.
Yeah, so we really, again, it sounds like we're not taking breaks at all, but it's also, a lot of it is kind of relaxing because a lot of it's eating and drinking and like spending time with friends. So we wanted to spend most of our time out. Like we didn't want to be sitting in our Airbnb all day. So I think that's kind of what we did. I think Matt and Hannah, that might have been the day we all walked on the Ponte Vecchio for a little bit, which we can get to in a little bit. But in between, we had some really good dinner reservations that we'll talk about in a second. But in between, right? Same day?
Yep.
In between, like, our other outings and dinner, since, again, dinner is usually later, we decided to go to just get some drinks, get an aperitivo. And I don't remember if we had found this. I think we might have seen this on, like, Instagram or something previously. But there was this really, really cool restaurant, not traditional, but modern, called the View on Art, like a bar, and it was right around the corner from where we were staying. So we went.
No, right around the corner of the Duomo. But
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Either way,
Yeah.
all close together. And I think we got really lucky because when we got there, they asked us if we had a reservation, and we were like, "Oh no, we don't have one." And I think originally they're like, "Oh, we don't have any seats for you," but then they're like, "Oh, actually, one just freed up. You guys can come." So I think we got really lucky, but like sitting right in front of the Duomo, like
right next to the Duomo.
I was staring at the Duomo the entire time we were, and it was like on a rooftop, so like great view
around sunset time.
Yeah, it was awesome. So that was, again, not so much of a traditional stop, but just a really fun, kind of relaxing thing to do in between everything else. So really suggest that. I'm sure there's other great bars around, but
I think that was probably.
I think that's like it.
The
honestly.
peak,
like
the peak bar.
And then we got home like the next week or two, and apparently I didn't realize how popular that was, but we saw like so many social media influencers there at that specific bar, so we know it's a good one.
Yeah, and fun tip: if you're in Italy and you're young, and you take videos of your food and drinks, they think you're a social media influencer, so you get free stuff.
Yeah, sometimes we did.
We got free stuff. Several restaurants.
Yeah, so that's also a fun little add-on. So then after that, we kind of hung out there until we had dinner reservations, and the dinner reservations were like probably the only real dinner reservations we had for the entire trip, but it was like the pinnacle of Florence food and something that everyone needs to do if they go, and it was the Florentine steak.
Florentine steak.
So it was a fancy steakhouse, by far our most expensive meal on the trip, but so worth it. So I don't even know, I mean, the restaurant itself was awesome, our waiter was super nice, but it was just like the classic experience. We got these steaks, I can't even tell you how big they were, like massive steaks that we got two for between the four of us.
Yeah,
they're really into, I didn't know this actually until we were there, and I learned a little bit more about it, that I think they're very much into simple food and simple side dishes and like the traditional food culture, because that's a lot of what was available. So I learned that like beans are a really common side dish, like beans, green beans, like just like vegetables, I can't remember what, but like that would be like what you ordered as a side. Like you were supposed to get like a steak or an entree, and then also like a side of green beans, which was really random to me, but it makes sense when I thought about it. Like that's what they have readily available, and like back in the farm areas, that's what they have.
Yeah, and the steak is also just like simple too. I mean,
the
steak is incredible, but it's all just salt on it, and they just sear it on both sides, and then they hand it to you. It is very rare.
Yeah. So if you don't like rare steak, then they won't like you.
Yeah, they will. You'll insult them if you don't want a rare steak.
I thought it was really cool, because I think the way they explained it was they're so proud. They call it's their Chianti beef, which Chianti is a region in Tuscany that we'll talk about in a little bit too, because we went there. That Florence is technically right around. I don't know if it's in it or right around it, but these Florentine steaks are made of their Chianti cows, and they're very, very proud of these cows. So that's why they think the meat speaks for itself, basically. Like that's why they don't put a whole lot of seasoning on it, because it's just so tender and so flavorful without it. So that was different, because I feel like here we're used to things being like doused in seasoning and doused in sauce, and theirs was it was very simple, speak for itself, but it was really good. So
yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Also, that we got the biscotti.
Yes.
and
And
the
the
dessert one, the
Vinsanto.
Vinsanto.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
that was our
really
dessert.
traditional to do this Vinsanto dessert wine.
It's like a sweet wine.
And you get this biscotti, which, if you don't know what that is just like a very dry cookie almost. And you dip the biscotti, you like soak it in the Vinsanto, and that's like your dessert. So we went all out. We had.
I wouldn't say it was the best tasting
I
thing,
liked
but it was good.
Yeah, it's traditional.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was day
day
2. Hooray!
Yeah, and day 3 was a shorter day.
I need to take a sip.
Okay.
I'm thirsty.
Yeah. Day 3 was a shorter day. I guess to end day 2 though, we also went up to we just hung out on the rooftop for quite a while, and another nice thing about the nighttime Florence is it's all like lit up. It's all golden lighting that just looks really pretty. So we went up on the rooftop and you get this nice golden view of Palazzo Vecchio and the rest of the city. But day 3 we were doing a sort of half day, and so the first half of the sort of ending of our Florence time, we went to the Uffizi,
that was another early. We had like an 8:15 a.m. reservation
early.
just to get there and try and beat the crowds. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you keep going because I know less about this.
Yeah, so the Uffizi is one of the other really, really famous museums. I'm sure there's.
I think definitely one of the most famous art museums in the world.
Yeah.
More famous than the Academia.
Yes, and I'm trying to remember. I mean, I am not great with all the art stuff. I mean, I can appreciate it, but I did not study art, so I don't know. I can't even remember all the names of the famous things, but like Da Vinci, Michelangelo, the Venus painting.
Yeah, the Birth of Venus is the big draw to the Uffizi, and then you have Caravaggio, several Caravaggios, and the Medusa statue, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it was really. I mean, it's great, especially if you love art. I mean, if you love art, then it's incredible.
Yeah, and I think it's something you still should go see, even if you don't.
Yeah, I definitely think so. You could go through it a little bit fast tracked and see all the highlights if you don't love art.
Yeah.
But if you love art, then you could spend an entire day there.
Mm-hmm. And still not really have time to appreciate it all because it's just covered in painting, or like art, painting, statues, and it's a huge, huge building. There's like a first floor and a second floor, right?
Yeah.
And it wraps
Third
around.
floor, maybe. No, yes, first and second.
It's like a U shape all the way around, but. So that was really cool. I think we spent like 3 hours there. And again, we're not art people, so that gave us everything we needed. I mean, I thought it was really cool. I'm glad we did it. But I think that 3 hours is plenty if you're just like a normal person who likes art but doesn't know a lot about it. But again,
maybe 2 hours.
2 for him. But it was still really
I prefer architecture over art painting, but it was still something you have to go do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was our last, I think, big in-city Florence thing. We actually got just a quick lunch at the touristy restaurant, I think, there, just so it was easy. And then we started the second leg of our Italy, Tuscany trip, which was completely different, but equally as incredible.
Yeah.
And maybe more, just in a different way. But to get there, we had to rent a car, and that was not so incredible.
Nah, that was tough.
Yes, so just to be aware, if you're driving in Italy, maybe don't, or
if you're an Oklahoman driving in Italy, you're in trouble.
Even a Texan.
Not an easy. Well, okay, dog. It's not easy to drive in Florence. It's very stressful. They have certain zones that only Florence citizens can drive in. They're called ZTL zones, and they didn't tell us that beforehand. And it's just hectic driving. I mean, it seems like I almost killed like 3 people, but they're fine with it. They're just getting in the way and trying to die, I guess.
Yeah. What really surprised me is when we were driving out to our destination was how skinny the roads were. Like, I was expecting driving in the Tuscany countryside to be like these big wide roads and fields, but it's like tight. I mean, I'm sure there are parts like that, but we were like in between like brick walls and trees, and like where one car could barely fit, and those cars are small over there. So
yes, ours was one of the biggest ones, and it was not big at all.
Also, car rentals are hard to get there. We almost didn't get a car, even though I booked it way in advance. We got there and they're like, we might not have one, and I was like, would.
Yeah.
So we got a little panicked, but after like an hour of waiting in this car rental shop that was like 1,000,000,000 degrees and watching like 4 people get declined in front of us a car, we actually somehow miraculously got the car we booked. So long story short, worked out, but that kind of took us to our next destination. So I don't know if you want to explain kind of like what we were trying to get out of that.
Yeah, we wanted to go to the Tuscan countryside. So the beautiful like rolling hills of Tuscany, the wine fields in Tuscany. And to do that, we stayed at an agriturismo. And an agriturismo is essentially like an Airbnb, but it's an Airbnb that has an operating farm. And ours that we stayed at is, I mean, they're all of them, and all of those in Tuscany are like sort of old style large family manors, because they have to have a lot of land to be an agriturismo. Most of them are winemakers or olive oil producers, and ours happen to do everything, I guess. So you can keep going with
kind of how I got there. Yeah, and I think that one, I'm sure we'll say it a million times in this part, but we're so happy we booked at an agriturismo, because to me it just feels like they have a lot of like soul in what they're doing, because they live there, they're producing things there, and I can't remember if you already said this, but they're really doing this, like they rent out these extra rooms and the rest of their like manor or whatever you call it, kind of just for extra money. That's
their supplemental income. It's like, I mean, these aren't just like investors that bought some properties in the Tuscan countryside. These are families that have owned and operated these businesses for several generations, hundreds of years sometimes.
There's actually like a place that you can book an agriturismo that's really similar to Airbnb, which we learned. It was called agriturismo.it was the website. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So we found this place. I don't really know why we ended up deciding on it, but oh my gosh, like have no regrets. It was incredible. We got there. It's a different world. I mean, you're 30 minutes away from Florence, which really you're probably only like a couple of miles, but with all the winding roads and everything, it feels like you're farther away.
You can almost see Florence, I guess. You can't really see it, but you can.
If you turn a few corners, you'd probably be able to see it. But I think it ended up probably taking us closer to like 45 minutes to an hour, just because we were driving really slow because we were scared of driving there. But it takes like the chaos of Florence away, and then you're just left with like the beauty of like the natural raw like countryside, and like it's just exactly like you imagine it or like see in the movies or the pictures. It's like just these little Tuscan farmhouses or like mansions and the rolling hills, and just literally picturesque Tuscany. And that's exactly what we wanted to see and wanted to experience. It was just kind of like a slower pace, I guess. And I gotta tell you, like it was just incredible.
It's hard not to pack up and move there.
Yeah, honestly, we want to buy one.
buy one of those and just live out the rest of your days there.
We follow, like I follow some, I think you do too, like Tuscany real estate now, and it's just all these places that are basically like, it's just like normal, like Zillow, but for Italy. And it makes me want to buy one. So
you can buy these like manors for like 1.3 million, and these are like
huge.
15 bedroom houses that are for sale with 2 or 3 acres of land.
Yeah, so it was kind of cool to like see that side of it. But anyways, we ended up getting there. Had probably the most beautiful view of a room that I've ever had. It for sure was actually.
Oh yeah.
And just like they have all these vineyards. So, like you just see like vineyards all out your window. You see the olive trees where they produce their olive oil from. And we had the guy who owned it, so technically I think his dad or his grandpa owned it, but he was like the next generation working it. Eventually we'll probably continue on with owning it in the future. His name was Federico, and I love Federico. He's so nice, so welcoming.
Put a link on the place.
Oh yes, we should. I do remember the name. It was called Ulivello in Chianti was the name of the agriturismo, and kind of what you get. So not only do you get like the rest and just the beauty of it, but you're getting like a true, almost what, I mean, I don't know for a fact, but it feels like this is what like a Tuscan family actually experiences every day. Granted, they're doing the labor that we're not doing, like in their vineyards and stuff. And we actually were there. It was really cool during harvest season. So when we were not out in the middle of the day, like getting a wine tour or whatever, like they had people around the clock picking the grapes and like, you know, starting to produce that wine, which takes a lot of time. But it was really, really cool to be there at that time, because we were also getting to kind of experience that harvest process while we were there. Which is, I guess, like the first part of what I was saying was like you just get like this true authentic experience with the food and everything and the service. But
and it also feels like it's like going into the past at the same time.
Yeah,
this has been done for so long.
Yeah.
And when we got there, Federico actually took us down to, I guess, what would you call like
it's their house,
wine
like
their
cellar.
Their cellar, but not their cellar. Like the whole winemaking process.
The production facility where they're producing the wine. She's freaking out.
Her face.
I don't think she's comfortable. Yeah. So he had mentioned when we got there, he was like, "Hey, I'm taking one of our other guests on a tour, like of our wine production process this afternoon. If you guys want to join." And we're like, "Oh, we'd love to." And he's like, "Okay, meet me here down here at 5. Like, we'll take you down." And so it was Keaton and I and one of our friends. The other one wasn't feeling well, so he rested. And then this older man from France who was named Bernardo, who I loved. And I'll get to him in a second. But so Federico took us down and really showed us, again, since it was harvest season, like they were in the process of like taking the grapes, pressing them, all that good stuff. Yeah. So he showed us
fermenting everything.
Yeah. He showed us that entire process, and he let us do little like samples of different parts in the process. So like wine that was not wine yet, but like had just
grape juice essentially. Yeah, and then you had like slightly fermented wine, and then you had the full thing.
Yeah.
It was
really cool. And it was, I mean, I don't know what I was expecting, but it's a lot messier than I expected it to be. Like, it's not a pretty process, because it's just a bunch of grapes being squished.
Got a bunch of fruit flies in the bees, and...
But it was still really cool. But, like, they're huge, these huge barrels. Like, I mean, they were, like, tins. Yeah. And, like, we had to, like, climb up ladders and, like, stick our head inside this thing to see it. But that was really cool. Again, just, like, a cool thing that I would have never known. And that's one of those things where, like, a normal wine tour is just like wine tasting, like, and that wasn't even a wine tour, but like we got the behind the scenes of the wine tour, like the real thing, and that was really cool.
Yeah. I think their production does about 100,000 bottles a year, is what he said.
I think 100 to 150, depending on the
rain and weather.
Which, for reference, we went to another winery the next day that their production was like 6,000 bottles of wine. So like, I think they're doing pretty good business. Yeah. But anyway, so that's kind of what we did the first day. The only downside to that part of our trip was something we didn't know, was the idea is that you can get everything there, like your food, like anything. But their restaurant was closed on the 2 days we were there, which was not advertised, which was unfortunate, but there was a lot of restaurants around that were open just up the road, and we had a car, so it wasn't a big deal. So I think that night we ended up driving to like a pizza place.
Yeah, he gave us some recommendations on where to drive. We drove like 5 minutes to a restaurant that actually was a lot of fun. It was like evening out over to the Tuscan hills, and we were eating outside, and these people were so friendly, and I wanted to get the squid ink pasta, and they didn't have the squid ink pasta. They ran out, I guess. And so he decided to throw me together this custom-made seafood pasta, and the chef was so proud of it. He was like, "Can you please post it on Instagram?"
He did.
And please tag me. And I was like, "Oh, definitely. I'm not famous, unfortunately, so I'm not going to get you a lot of traction, but I'll do that."
It was so sweet. Like, again, that's what Keaton was saying. If you have your phone out and you're taking pictures and videos, I think you can like really make a difference on the social media world, which was like kind of like cool, but that's not how I feel like we are at this point. But it was really cool. I will say, I tried to buy this pasta. I like seafood, and seafood pasta, but I had one noodle of his seafood pasta, and if you don't like seafood, you should not eat it because it tastes like straight out of the water. Like, but it was really, really good.
It was good.
I think I just, like, I had pizza. Of course, you have to get pizza when you're in Italy, and it just, again, I feel like we're not saying a lot about all the restaurants, but it's because every single restaurant, every single meal was good. Like, there was nothing we had that we did not like.
Yeah,
I would say.
I like that one a lot, and we had some good wine since we were in Tuscany. So every meal we had wine with.
Yeah, I don't think I definitely took for granted having it that readily available. Was just like good, because that's like the Chianti wine. So this is something else that we learned. I guess there wasn't really much else that day that we got to the agriturismo necessarily.
Yeah.
But so the next morning we kind of had a free day, and we decided a good way to spend that would be doing a wine tour. Again, how better do you experience like the Italian countryside where they make this incredible wine than like going on a wine tour? So there was a place like a mile up the road, and this was the place that produced 6,000 bottles a year. I don't remember the name of it. I have it.
They honestly looked at bigger at scale than ours, but I guess ours we just didn't get the full view. But yeah, we went and did that wine tour, and it was a lot of fun because we made friends kind of on the.
Yeah, that's another like side note is just like everyone is really, really friendly over there. Even people that were on vacation, like the culture and like especially in the countryside. I mean, and in Vienna, where we'll talk about in another video, but like it's really easy to get to know people over there. Like they want to talk to you and like socialize, and it was fun. But I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, you keep going because you explain it better than me.
I explain it better than
Yeah.
me? But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was definitely not as intimate of like a wine tour as our tour of like the production process the day before. I forgot to talk about Bernardo. I'll have to go back and talk about Bernardo.
We still have time.
But there was probably like 15 of us on this wine tour, and there was like two girls from Germany, two friends that were on a trip that we talked to for a while, and like talked to them about where they're from and like places we should go and visit in Germany if we ever visited. We ended up at a table with a couple of women from Canada, and so talked to these Canadian women like about their business. They were on their business trip, and really freaking cool business trip. First of all,
what a great business
how
trip.
do I get that job? But, so it was just really fun to get to like be there and socialize. Actually, ironically, that day, that wine tour where we just sat and drank wine and talked to people for like 4 hours was our anniversary, which was really cool. So that was like
I didn't know that. Well,
surprise. He knew it at the time. He just forgot. But that was kind of cool that it overlapped. But yeah, we just sat in this beautiful little pavilion, and I really think we were there for like 4 hours. They did a similar thing where they took us around and talked about it, but it was also cool to get to sit there and like try these different wines side to side. We've never been big red wine people until that trip, so I wish I would have known more about it before, because now anytime I have Italian wine, I can Chianti Italian wine, I can like truly taste the difference. Like so good. We learned a lot about the production process too. I don't know if
it's not the cheap one, like real authentic.
Yeah,
because they will mass produce the.
They do mass produce it, but there's
Chianti Classico.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how much detail we want to go into, but basically on that wine tour and from our agriturismo owner, they both told us that there's a couple of different like qualities of Italian wine, and to be able to how did they say it, like to be able to call yourself like a Chianti wine and to call it like a certain name.
Chianti Classico.
It has to be aged for a certain amount of time. So
it has to be aged for I think a year at least.
This is the first level
in a specific way.
Yeah, so the first level of like quality wine is like the Chianti Classico, and I guess you said it's a year.
I don't know for sure, but I think
something. But they have to be aged in these specific barrels called barriques. We thought Federico was saying barrels the whole time, and
I thought
he was the wrong word.
I thought he didn't understand thought he didn't know the word barrel and was saying barrique, but barrique is actually like a 250-liter barrel.
Yeah.
Specifically.
So Chianti Classico, and then the step above that, and like the prime time of like Italian wine, is the Reserva. And Reserva, I think you have to age it for 2 years in a barrique. So it was just really cool to be sitting there and trying these really nice wines right next to each other and getting to compare them all. We actually ended up, this is actually probably one of the best purchases we made on our trip. We actually shipped a case home, and it was definitely like, I say it's pricey, but it was like one of those
Worth it to
yeah,
pay for.
like souvenirs almost, but like it's something you can actually enjoy. And we still have all, like, we're saving them for like special occasions, but like we're gonna also be able to keep those bottles forever. And like it's just something really special about like knowing we took this, we got it shipped to our house, but still, like, we actually got this from the place in this little countryside villa in Italy. Like, it just makes me really, really happy to think about having something that like unique and that special, that probably most people in the world aren't ever gonna have that wine. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
Especially the one
that has 6,000 bottles.
Yeah. So, just absolutely incredible. Really, really great. That was most of our second day in the countryside. We ended up at a little town, like a little restaurant. Again, the restaurant was closed, so we went to. Oh no.
No, yeah, in Brunetta.
I almost forgot. Yeah. So.
Finished the tour.
Yes.
Drove 10 minutes away to a small town called Impruneta.
Just for fun.
Just for fun, just to hang, because we wanted to burn some time before dinner, and it was like the authentic Italian country living town.
Yeah.
Where did we go? We parked down at the bottom, walked up the hill, which is a lot of the towns are on top of sort of hills in Tuscany. I guess that's originally how towns were established, was that's the best place to be. My goodness, dog. And then we just stopped at like a small restaurant bar area and got some drinks and just hung out, and all the people stared at us like, how did you find, all the locals were staring at us like, how in the world did these people find this place? Like,
yeah, they all looked very confused, like why we were in their town. Like,
especially like
tiny.
a blonde haired girl, like complete opposite of what all of them look like.
Which the great thing too is like almost everyone there speaks some kind of English, so we weren't just ever really fending for ourselves, I would say. But yeah, it was really cool because we were definitely just in this little town. It seemed like mostly old people too, like just like this little elderly town. And they apparently all get off work at like 3:00 there. So like when they got off work, the little like restaurant we were sitting at got a lot busier. But yeah, it was just so funny to me, like, and really cool that I was like, wow, we have found somewhere that like nobody goes. It wasn't even somewhere that we looked like. It's not even a place you would see if you looked it up to like find cool little towns in Italy to go. It's truly just this little tiny town, just that we happened to be right beside them. We're like, let's just go.
Ultimate authentic experience.
Yeah, so that was awesome. And then we kind of did a similar thing at a little place closer to our agriturismo for dinner. We just found another restaurant that was close by.
Not a single person was there, which was sad.
It was, but I think that's just their way. Like,
yeah, we're kind of in the off season at this point, so late September is getting pretty non-touristy. But yeah, we went to this restaurant just a couple minutes from our agriturismo, and it was incredible.
That was probably top 3 of our restaurants.
Well, I kind of think that was the best one.
Okay, there you go.
I think that was the best. I mean, unless the steak was really good, the steak one was amazing, but that was also paying a lot of money for that, and this was not paying a lot of money for incredible food. So this was my favorite, most memorable one. I
do remember, it wasn't my meal, but it was Hannah's meal. She just got like the garlic carbonara, like simple recipe, but I tried a bite of her food, and I think that was like the best bite of food I had on the entire trip. Like, I'm probably not kidding about that.
That's mostly what I'm meaning, is the best taste. Yeah. The best taste of food was that one, because the best restaurant experience was the next day. But we'll talk about that after.
Yeah. So that was day 2
in the countryside.
I guess we also forgot to mention this for our second day, but the third day we also got to experience that the agriturismo, they didn't do dinner, but they did do breakfast. And so we woke up the next morning, and they serve like everything they have there is like their fresh stuff. And I think if they don't have something, they source it from other local agriturismos or like farms in the area. So like, I can't even describe, like, it sounds so simple, but it was so refreshing. Just like the beauty and the simplicity. Like, that sounds so dramatic, but like they brought out like just like a plate of fruit, like a literal just like pear, an apple, an orange, some strawberries, like picked from their garden that morning, like something so.
Yeah, just completely fresh picked.
Yes, it was crazy.
And he said the pears.
Oh yeah, he couldn't, his little Italian accent. He was saying pears, but he would call them pears. So he was like, "I can go to pear."
And you're like, I mean, you're sitting and you're kind of overlooking the vineyards, and I mean, of course, we've already mentioned it before, but the views that the agave trees were just incredible. It's the rolling hills and the vineyards and the olive trees, and that's where you're sitting. You're sitting there eating in this incredible environment.
Yeah, so that was a really nice thing to enjoy. Both mornings we were there. And he brings out fresh coffee, and it's just so, I don't think we've emphasized enough how much they really take time to enjoy their meals. Like, they're not in a rush. And I remember even times like we were never frustrated or annoyed by anything, but I remember even like a couple times where we were like, oh, like don't forget, like we ordered a coffee, and he's like, oh no, I'm working on it. But like they just take their time, and they put like, I don't know, I just feel like they put a lot of effort into what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they're not rushed.
It's not like the American get in and out of a restaurant within an hour, and it's just like, you're here for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. And I think really that even that breakfast was one of my favorite like photos I got on that trip, just of like a little snap that I took in the middle, but it was just like our little like placement out with our fruit bowl, and then like a cappuccino and like a glass of fresh squeezed orange juice, and I was like, oh my gosh, I look back on that and I'm like, that was my happy place, honestly. That breakfast. And it was just really, really cool. So we did get to experience food with our friends before they left through breakfast. But that third day in the morning, we ended up taking them back to the train station in Florence.
Yeah, this is where we split up.
Yeah, they split off. We did one more day in Tuscany, because we had one extra day on our trip, and they were hitting a few extra places. Like we had one more destination, they had like 2 or 3. But so that last day, honestly, most of the day we just kind of recuperated. We really needed like a rest day because I think the traveling caught up to us at that point. But still, what better place to rest than like overlooking the Tuscan countryside? Like, couldn't complain. But we did get to finally experience the restaurant, which I'll let you talk about. Yeah,
the restaurant at our agriturismo. So Federico was the chef, kind of, or he's the waiter / chef.
He does everything.
He does everything.
He's the waiter.
Like
he doesn't do the.
Okay, he wasn't the cook. But yeah, we got there at 7, and then we tried some wines, and we were just hanging out with Federico. We had appetizers, we had dinner, both really good. Then we got the dessert wines, and it was all like really good. But the whole thing was this perfect experience of like, where you're hanging out and talking to the people around you, and talking to Federico, and getting this full sort of Italian relationship experience of a dinner, where it's not an hour-long dinner. It was like it was probably 3 hours.
I think we were there for 3.5 hours.
3.5, 4 hours, yeah.
And it was just literally downstairs from where we were staying that night. So it's never in my life would I imagine having a 3.5 dinner on a normal day here. But like, there was no time there. Like, it did not feel that long. We were not rushed out the door. And something else too that I remember hearing is like, just in Italy in general, a lot of the times when you book a table at a restaurant, like, you're booking it for the night. Like, they're not expecting the turnover like American restaurants are. So, and I know this is different because they're in agriturismo and they kind of don't expect that regardless, but like, they're not really trying to get you out the door, you know. They want you to stay and have community.
And the restaurant seemed really popular. Like, compared to the other restaurants we went to, it got busy. Like, it got so busy that Federico's parents had to come over and help.
But they were just right down the road?
Yeah, they were right down the road, and he called them, and they came up and helped get everything done.
Yeah, so that was
like truly family business. Truly a family business.
Yeah, and you could tell they put a lot of like soul into what they do, which is super, super cool. We talked to Federico, and again, I feel like we could talk so much about it, but just the relational side, like, we got to learn about Federico. Like, he told us where he, like, just how they got involved in what they were doing. He told us where he was planning on traveling. He was going to China and or Thailand in a few months. I ended up following him on Instagram, so I see all his like travel posts now. But like, I don't know, know. It's maybe they do that for everyone, but I just felt like if we lived there, like we would actually be friends with him, and that was really, really cool.
I think most tourists go and they don't talk to people and they just want to hang out. But I think one of the best parts about traveling is when you actually get to meet locals and you get to talk to them and get to a point where you can actually sort of have this sort of acquaintance. And now we see them on social media, so we have some kind of connection forever in a way.
Yeah, and that kind of brings up too. The other person we met while we were at the agriturismo that I forgot to mention was an older man and his wife from France. Their names were Bernardo and Bridget. And not to give, I will kind of skip the backstory on just like, I don't know, some of the details, but he was on the wine tour with us. They only really overlapped for a day. The wine tour at our agriturismo, that is. But that was one of those like short instances where you meet someone that you know you're probably never gonna see again, but like I say it changed my life, but that sounds so dramatic and silly, but like just like knowing that people actually want to be known and that they're like willing to get to know complete strangers was so cool. And this man like and his wife, so sweet, such broken English. They're from France, and I don't even really know what was so unique about our conversations because it was hard to communicate.
He was a winemaker himself.
He was a winemaker, and he had wines. I don't know if he made the wine or if he was invested in a wine business, but he and his wife drove to Florence. They were doing a road trip around Europe, and I think he kept bottles of his French wine in his car, and he gifted us a bottle of French wine that we drank one night before dinner, and
gave us his email.
So I took a picture during our like little wine production tour of all of us, and he was in it, and he really wanted the picture, and I couldn't figure out how to text a foreign number, like it just doesn't work. We couldn't communicate well enough to figure it out, so he gave me his Gmail. And so I emailed him the photo when we got back to the US, and I just said, hey, it was so great to meet you guys, and we talked a few other times too, so just getting to kind of hear about their story and like where they were traveling and seeing how excited they were to talk to us, like, was just really cool. But I had emailed them after our trip, and I actually got an email back, and it was probably like the best email I've ever gotten in my life. It was all in French, so like, you know, they Google translated our email originally, and so I had to in turn Google translate his entire email, and then there's emojis everywhere, like he threw in like smiley face, heart, like everything. And he basically, long story short, invited us to come stay with him in France, which is freaking cool. I mean, I don't know if we ever will, but he said like we'd love to show you guys around. He told us his town, I'm gonna butcher the name, it's like Torelis or something, I don't know. It's on the coast in France. It looks like a small town, but it's a 2.5 hour drive from Barcelona. And he was like, let us know if you guys ever come. So just one of those cool experiences.
So either we'll do that and have a great friendship, or we'll be killed.
Yeah, but we'll let you know if we ever do it. Or you'll never hear from us again, and you'll know. But no, I really do think that was just such a cool, in between all of the art and architecture and the food and the wine, like the relationships just like brought it all together, in my opinion. Yeah. And made it, and that's why we like staying in one place, because I don't feel like you get that if you're rushing from one place to the next.
If you only hit the highlights, then you're gonna miss out on the relationship part of it. Yeah, that was basically the end of our agriturismo time. We woke up early the next morning to leave and go back to Florence for a day.
You almost broke your foot.
Oh yeah, I woke up really early because I really wanted to beat all the traffic, because it is so stressful driving. And we woke up before the light, and there was no lights in the house, and then I was taking all the suitcases down the stairs and fell all the way down the stairs.
It wasn't funny, but it
smashed my foot, but it was like the loudest crash ever.
Yeah, we probably woke up the entire
And I'm just sitting there for like 30 seconds, and then Lydia comes to the edge of the stairs, and she's like, what are you doing? I was just like, oh.
He really was just sitting in the corner, and his head was kind of like this.
I ruined the trip because I thought I broke my foot.
Which, good news, he didn't. But he was limping for like a full 24 hours. But he powered through. That's why we did not climb the Duomo. Yeah,
because we went back to Florence, and I limped around really bad. Like, the foot was very swollen. We bought some ace bandages to wrap it, and then I limped around Florence the rest of the day. We're going to climb the Duomo. This was since it was our last day, but we didn't because obviously I couldn't. But what did we find? We found the cool. It was a slow day because it was just like hanging out.
Yeah.
We found the cool coffee shop in
Yeah.
the University of Florence.
Yeah. I will say too, I mean, originally, I don't know what our original plan was, but we added this extra buffer day back in Florence as opposed to going right to our next destination. I think it's just kind of a buffer so that we weren't like stressed trying to get to our next place. And I think in a lot of ways, if we changed anything, we might have changed that and just gone straight to where we were going or stayed an extra day in our Turismo or something. But we still got to make the most of that day.
Yeah.
And kind of hit some new places. And again, I think it was more of a laid back day, like you said. Like we found a cool coffee shop in the university, and there was all these students, and it was kind of cool just to.
The coffee shop is hidden. It's not easy to find.
Hidden.
And so it was cool that we ended up finally finding it. And yeah, it was just a laid back day. I think we probably would have changed it, like you said, to do an extra day in Vienna.
And I think more than anything, it was just the constant, like, having to get to our next destination and just trying to figure out what to do with our luggage in between and, like, when we could check into our Airbnb. And I think that on top of just that was only, we stayed at that place for one night. So I think just all the added stress of trying to, like, coordinate that the day of was a little bit excessive. But again, I mean, if that's the one thing we would change, like, that's not a big deal. So we did do was it the Ponte Vecchio?
Yes. No, we did the Ponte Vecchio. I mean, it was the Palazzo Vecchio.
Palazzo Vecchio, sorry. That was the one extra thing we did, and that's, I don't know how to describe that really.
Just the big palace that has the tall tower. It's like a museum. It was cool, but I don't think it's a necessary thing.
Yeah, but it was something to do on our last day.
Yeah. And we also did the cafeteria.
Oh, yeah.
It was pouring down rain. It was pouring down rain.
What was that called? Mercado.
Yeah. We'll find it and link it.
I think it's something Mercado, but it's their
market.
It's their food market.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. It was raining that day.
It was pouring down rain, so we needed to be inside. We found this awesome market, this sort of cafeteria style where there's a bunch of little restaurants, and we just stayed there for hours.
Yeah, and they have the traditional market where you can go buy food and meat and
sure, we got some souvenirs.
We did get some souvenirs. You're welcome, family. And I forgot one more thing. Anyways, but yeah, we did that. And got some food and just rested and visited, so that was kind of fun. And then I do remember, that reminds me, the one other thing we did that day. Not did, but the person we ran into. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, this guy.
Yes.
Oh, you can't really see it in this picture.
So we'll move it later, but
right before we left.
Yeah,
right before we left.
So we had a night train to Vienna, so we had that next day after we spent the night in Florence, and kind of before we left at 9 p.m. that night on this overnight train. So on top of the Mercado and just kind of walking around and finding some coffee shops, we were walking back around the river, which is right by the Uffizi Museum. And in the square of the Uffizi was a bunch of local artists, painters, that were just trying to sell their paintings, which we were trying to, I don't know, I think we've been very intentional on trying to find meaningful souvenirs. I don't want to just buy something that we're never going to use again. And so we were hey, it would be a really good idea to buy a painting. What better way to remember our time than to have a painting of the place that we stayed. Do you want to talk about the guy we met? Yeah,
so we wanted to they have a ton of artists outside the Uffizi. They're all selling art to tourists, all of them doing it for a long time, but I was how do we find the best one? And we're not art critics. I think we've already established that. So we didn't really know how to decide from the actual art itself. But so we walked around though and tested out to see who's going to sell us this art, who's going to be a little bit obnoxious and sell us this art. And we found the one guy who did not make a big deal about selling us his art. And we were this is who we're going to buy from. And he was just a sweet little old man that talked to us for, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And he was just so proud of what he did. he was from the countryside and would come in every day, I think.
I think so.
At 6 a.m. and get set up, and what did he tell us? He like thumbprinted the back of it, told us if he gets famous when he dies that remember it was his painting.
Yeah, he had like a little ink pad and he thumbprinted the painting that we bought before he packaged it up for us, I guess, and that so that if he ever became famous, like in the future, that we would have his authentic. I know it's this one right here. Wait, there we go.
I can barely see it.
But it's, oh my gosh, like best purchase probably.
Yeah.
And we bought a painting for my parents too. I wish I would have bought more, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that's just the neighbors.
Oh.
That happens when they move.
That's footsteps.
Nuh-uh.
That was a person.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah. I think it was Amazon.
You watch from the front porch on while we're at it, just so people know we're home.
I think it was Amazon because it was a girl.
That's fun. We were supposed to get an Amazon package tonight. That scared me.
Some person just walked over to our porch with a flashlight.
Oh man.
Well, that's cool. Slightly freaky.
A little freaky, but anyways, I think we're just wrapping up with the painting. But just a really cool way to end that part of our trip, and another one of those really, really quick experiences talking to somebody that I will never forget. That man, I will never forget. I don't know his name. He probably wrote it on there, but I don't remember it.
We'll have to get it out someday.
Yeah. We drilled it into our wall basically, and that kind of led to this little like setup too. We wanted to like have just a way to document our travels, but I'm trying to think of just that was high level, just kind of how
the end of Italy part.
Yeah, we
took
got
the
some
night
quick
train
dinner.
to Vienna.
Yeah, which we'll get to in another video, but like just absolutely incredible. Like if we could do the whole thing again, I totally would. And we always talk about like when are we going back, but I know there's so many other places to go.
I gotta go to other places. Yeah, that's the problem, is deciding if you want to go back to the same places or find new places. But
all those things, all that to say, highly recommend Florence. Highly recommend staying in one place.
Agriturismos.
Definitely do the agriturismo. If you can figure out.
If you can, get to the Ulvello
in Chianti.
Ulvello in Chianti with Federico.
Yes, that is the agriturismo we stayed at. Super accommodating. Just the coolest experience. I'm sure there's a lot of other similar places where you can get a good experience, but something about that tells me that we got a really special place. So anyways, I think that's like our end of our first podcast of traveling. High five. Let's do a cheers with our empty wine glasses. I have no wine. I don't either, but we should have done this at the beginning. We forgot. Cheers. But thank you for listening. If you did. If you didn't, we have a video for us now. So.
I do.
Honey says bye.